Okay, so I want to talk about British politics, but before I move on to the main topic of this video, there was a news story yesterday that has sort of been buried under all the other news that's been going on, and that is a tragedy that occurred in Birmingham. Apparently, five workers at a recycling plant in the Netchells district of the city were killed when a wall collapsed. These men were said to be Spanish nationals, originally from Ghana or Gambia, I think it was. Um, so that's obviously a big tragedy. I think it would have got more coverage if this hadn't been such a turbulent period of ongoing news stories. So I just wanted to, pass that into the video, just to spread awareness of what has happened. You know, five people killed, so that's tragic. Um, Obviously, there's going to be investigations into the safety standards at that particular plant. And I think it also reminds us of the some of the safety issues that do go on in jobs that not everyone wants to do. Anyway, this has been an incredibly turbulent month for British politics, and there's way too much to encompass into one video, so I'm going to narrow it down a bit and focus on our next Prime Minister. This is the cover of today's Eye, so that's self explanatory. Our next Prime Minister, our 54th Prime Minister, will be a woman. Now, this is not a huge story because Britain has, of course, had a woman prime minister before, 1979 to 1990, Margaret Thatcher, who needs no introduction. It is interesting, though, that the Conservatives are not only the first party to have had the first woman prime minister, but also, lesser known fact, they're the first party to have had the first woman MP, who was Nancy Astor in the 1920s. I believe she was elected in 1920s or even 1918. I believe she was elected. So the Conservative Party, I think Labour can't really point the finger at the Tories on this one, because in many regards the Tories have led the way. Now the two candidates at this point are Theresa May, who served as Home Secretary for 6 years, and Andrea Leadsom, who is a backbencher. In fact, I think she's just been elevated to energy minister, so she's not entirely a backbencher, but she is a lot less known than Theresa May across the country. So just going to focus on these two candidates a little bit. Incidentally, I'm of the view that someone's gender is irrelevant to their performance as a leader, and I know progressives wouldn't agree with that, but one thing Andrea Leadsom said, which was interesting, was we now have two women in this contest, and it's been done without selection. So I think that was a swipe at Labour because the Labour Party is known for its all women shortlists. What Andrea Leadsom is saying, quite rightly, is that this was an open contest. There were three men involved, and it's just the luck of the draw. Those three men have now dropped out. The actual figures where this is in the first round, if you just bear with me a second, I'm going to cite the number of votes that the leaders got. Just for my international viewers, the way it works in the UK, when there is a leadership contest, at least within the Conservative Party, it's the members, the MPs vote for the next leader. Within the Labour Party, the rules have changed now, so the members vote, and it's one member, one vote, which is somewhat controversial given that it resulted in Mr. Corbyn. But that's for another video. I'm going to focus on Labour in another video. So the votes in the first round were Theresa May, 165, Andrea Leadsom, 66, Michael Gove, 48, Stephen Crabb, 34, Liam Fox, 16. Um, Poor old Liam Fox is at the bottom of the pile, which is interesting because Liam Fox is a very seasoned politician. He's a former defence secretary, and I think he's quite respected in Tory ranks. So I'm not quite sure why he got so low. Maybe he's just seen as not original. Stephen Crabb, a little bit more. His appeal wasn't being a work from a working class background, which is something the Tories need to win. He was kind of pitching on a John Major style appeal. He was from a working class background. He's a working class Tory, though he did have some controversy because of his views on uh, homosexuality. He had been tied to a group that advocated curing of homosexuality. take from that what you will. Um, and he had served as work and pensions minister, well, for a relatively short time, just since Ian Duncan Smith resigned earlier this year. Michael Gove is one of the best known politicians in the country. He was, along with Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, one of the three or four leading Leave campaigners in the Brexit debate. But I think with Michael Gove is in recent months, in recent days really, his reputation has really sunk. His colleagues do not trust him. He's widely seen to have stabbed Boris Johnson in the back. He's also very unpopular with teachers, in much the same way that Jeremy Hunt is unpopular with the medical profession. So Gove is seen as a sort of Machiavellian character. People within the Tory party have called him a psychopath. Now, to be fair, there are people closely associated with Boris Johnson, but that's not exactly an endorsement that you want to have. I think Michael Gove is a very clever individual, but when you're not trusted by your colleagues, you're not going to become leader of a major political party. Andrea Leadsom is an economist by nature. She could be the sort of dark horse candidate because until this year, she certainly wasn't a national figure. She wasn't well known. That doesn't necessarily rule her out. I mean, if we look back in 2005, David Cameron was a backbencher. He was then elected leader of the party. 5 years later, he was prime minister. Um, so it's not unheard of. This is just some of the main points about the two candidates. Andrea Leadsom, I believe she's in her mid 50s. I can't remember what exact age she is. 54, 55, I believe. Rank outsider defeats Michael Gove, then appeals to right wing grassroots. She is very much the Brexit candidate. She was a very vocal campaigner for the Leave side, and she was seen to have performed very well in that campaign. She was seen as a strong speaker. She promises prosperity, not austerity. That may be an appeal to critics of the Conservative Party. However, she's vowed to overturn the fox hunt ban, which is, that's just like kind of waving an appeal to the old Tory guard and, Lord Ponsonby Sims living in the countryside who wants to tear a defenceless animal to shreds. Yeah, I'm biased. I was very much in favour of the fox hunt ban. I think there's no excuses for it. Those who say it's just to reduce, fox numbers because they're pests, that's a lot of nonsense. I think it's a cruel blood sport and it's not needed in Britain in the 21st century, but that's my own view. She says marriage should have been between a man and a woman. Well, there's many, many people within the Conservative Party who have conservative views on gay marriage. When David Cameron took that decision, it was quite historic. He was the Conservative Prime Minister who made gay marriage legal in this country, but that was quite an unpopular move among many within his own party. Now, that's not actually as controversial as it should be because there are many Tories that share that opinion. She's been very careful to say that is my opinion, but I believe that love of gay people is equal to heterosexual love. But it's my Christian belief that it should be between a man and a woman. She's obviously pitching for Christian votes there. She actually said that gay marriage hurts Christian feelings. Well, my view on that is, religious feelings and offending religion is offense is a word that gets parried around a lot. But she is entitled to her opinion, even if you disagree with it. But I can understand gay couples being very alarmed by that. And it would definitely be controversial if she tries to overturn current legislation. That would definitely turn a lot of people against her. Now, looking at Theresa May, she's 59, a little bit older, but both women are, let's say, average age for becoming prime minister. Not too old, not too young, just about the right age. I would say anything. Personally, I think the sort of ideal age for prime minister is somewhere between 48 and 63. But to be honest, it all comes down to the individual. Incidentally, the median age for British prime ministers, I believe, is 56, unless I'm mistaken. We've had 54 prime ministers. I think the median age is 56. So Theresa May, she's been Home Secretary for 6 years, which is the longest serving time in that office in 100 years. So she's seen as one of our strongest Home Secretaries. She promises strong, proven leadership to negotiate Brexit. She may be actually in quite a strong position. She voted Remain, but she was never very vocal about it. So she wouldn't isolate Leave people. And I think other European leaders may see her as a good person to negotiate with. She claims overwhelming victory in MPs' votes, showing that she can unite the party. She is well ahead of Andrea Leadsom in the second round. I haven't seen the exact figures, but I know she's on three figures. Andrea Leadsom is still only on two figures. So she is definitely a strong favourite to get this. She must persuade 150,000 Tory members who will choose the next PM. So, as I understand it, the Tory MPs choose the candidates, but the members then choose the leader when it's narrowed down. I think Theresa May would get it at this point. I would be surprised if Andrea Leadsom does. There are some who are saying Andrea Leadsom is sort of the Tory Jeremy Corbyn in that she's an outsider. Um, Theresa May is often described as a safe pair of hands because she's seen as politically moderate. On social issues, she is relatively liberal on a number of issues. However, in immigration, she's very hardline. Um, I personally have very mixed views on her. I appreciate the fact that she stood up to the police federation. I think that is very important in a home secretary. I don't want a home secretary who's simply telling the police what they want to hear. Although Britain hasn't had the problems of America, we have had a few problems with police abusing their power. And I want a Home Secretary who is prepared to stand up to the Police Federation and not simply say what they want to hear. I think that's important. By the same token, she has shown leadership. She has expelled Abu Qatada, who was an Egyptian born terrorist who was a direct threat to this country. However, her stances on immigration have been controversial. There is a £36,000 threshold which she has set for people who want to, for mixed couples. Let's say one person is a British national and their husband or wife is not. She has this policy that I don't know all the details of it, but I have spoken to people who have been in this position. They need to earn 36,000 in order to, in order for to live together. Basically, I think that's basically using wealth as a love lottery, and I fundamentally disagree with that. I think in order for someone to be a British national, it should be a case of them showing what they can offer the country and showing that it's not a scam marriage, that they are genuinely in love. I don't think the barometer should be on how much money they are earning, because then you could simply say, oh well, these wealthy Saudi sheikhs and their princesses could come in, but I don't know, a British man and his Chinese or Polish wife can't, because the Chinese or Polish wife or her husband is not earning enough. I think that's fundamentally wrong. I think citizenship should be down to not how much someone earns, but what they can offer the country in terms of skills, in terms of how much they respect the country, in terms of how much they, are willing to offer the country. I don't think it should be about the amount of money someone has, because someone could be a multimillionaire and still have dodgy English or not care much about the country. So I think that's typical Tory thinking. Another area that I'm uneasy about Theresa May is that she has said there shouldn't be a general election until 2020. Now, obviously, she's not a dictator, but A, that would be repeating the mistake of Gordon Brown and not calling an election early on. If we have a quick recap, Gordon Brown succeeded Tony Blair. Theresa May is saying there should be a real contest, so she has had competition among, Tory ranks, but the wider public hasn't got to vote for her. So, in my opinion, she should call an election as soon as she becomes Prime Minister. I'm not saying immediately in the same month, but at least I would say January, February 2017. Labour might argue they're not ready. That's their problem. They didn't need to sort out their internal mess. But we simply cannot have an unelected prime minister for 4 years. That would be disgraceful, because then she has no democratic mandate from the wider public. I think that would be deeply, deeply controversial, and it would backfire. And if we look throughout the Western world, when this has happened, the leader has found themselves lame duck leader. Two prominent examples are Gordon Brown in the UK, Gerald Ford in the United States. In both examples, Gerald Ford was not elected as American president. Gordon Brown was not elected as British Prime Minister. They were both internally kind of elevated to their position. They both ended up getting resoundingly defeated in the coming election. So if Theresa May really wants to do that, she is setting herself up to be defeated by Labour in 2020. She should call an election for 2017. I personally believe the Tories are in a much stronger position right now, so she's nothing to fear by doing that. And it would prove that she's a Democrat. You simply cannot have an unelected minister for 4 years. So I would really take issue if she decided to do that. Um, Otherwise, I've no strong opinions on her. It's one of those things. I'm sure there are many, many areas I could say Theresa May said this or done that at a particular time. But we'll wait to see what happens. I'm always careful about overly praising someone or overly criticizing someone before they've even been in the office. So let's see what sort of Prime Minister Theresa May will be. The fact that she's a woman, I don't think is particularly huge news. She's the second woman to become British Prime Minister. If she was the first, it would be obviously a bigger story. But, in this day and age, it's no longer an issue. And I don't believe that gender is either good or bad. Um, I mean, at the moment, this is a country pretty much run by women. The First Minister of Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster, is a woman. The First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, is a woman. In Wales, I don't know if Liam Wood is the First Minister. I need to double check that, but she's the leader of the Welsh Nationalists. So Britain right now is pretty much run by women. I'm going to make a quick speculation. If there was a Theresa May cabinet, I can see her making Andrea Leadsom her chancellor, given Leadsom's economist pass. One quick word about Andrea Leadsom. People are saying that she wants to abolish the minimum wage. I think that would be an abomination. But I'll make another video about that if and when it happens. I could see Theresa May making her chancellor. Why? Because Andrea Leadsom is a prominent Brexit campaigner. That would be a way of unifying the party. Plus, it would be history. First woman chancellor. I can see her making someone like Liam Fox foreign secretary, and home secretary. I could see. Um, I was going to say Michael Gove, but Michael Gove is not trusted by his colleagues. So maybe Stephen Crabb would be a possible home secretary. It's a natural elevation from work and pension secretary to home secretary. Quick explanation for my international viewers. The four most important jobs in this country are Prime Minister, Chancellor of the Exchequer, which is Finance Minister. We don't really have a Deputy Prime Minister as a regular job. Prime Ministers can pick or choose if they have one. Home Secretary, and Foreign Secretary. Home Secretary is, I guess, in the States it would be called Secretary of the Interior. In France, it would be called Interior Minister. It's seen as a very important job in this country because they're basically in charge of everything to do with counterterrorism, law and justice. It's an umbrella term for all those things. Um, so yeah, let's see what happens. But she almost certainly will be our 54th Prime Minister in about a month, 2 months from now.